6 months have passed since Monica and David met. They were very different. The girl was from a wealthy family and was studying at a prestigious university. After graduation, she was going to join the family business. David, on the other hand, did not know his father, and his mother raised him alone. His mother's earnings were barely enough, and the guy had been used to relying on himself since he was 15. But Monica was not embarrassed by such a difference. She sincerely loved David and considered their relationship very serious. So she soon decided to introduce David to her parents. It was Sunday, and the young people decided to spend it at Monica's parents' house. Over dinner they discussed various topics. Finally, the girl made up her mind and timidly told her parents that she and David had decided to get married. Mom continued to eat with a nonchalant look, as if she had not heard anything. The father silently put aside his knife and fork and looked at his daughter carefully. He asked Monica menacingly if she was pregnant, for he saw no other reason for such haste. David tried to interfere in the conversation, convincing Monica's father that they just love each other and want to create a strong family. The displeasure of the head of the family was boundless. But then Monica's mother intervened in the conversation. She calmly reminded her husband that they also got married early and never regretted it. The girl's father kept silent and continued eating dinner. Mother and daughter looked at each other like conspirators, and the rest of the evening passed quietly. Monica was grateful to her mother, who as always came to the rescue and helped out in a difficult situation. After dinner, mother and daughter remained alone and talked a little more by the fireplace. The young woman enthusiastically told her mother how wonderful David was and how he loved her. She assured her mother that David would never let her down. Her mother, on the other hand, said that the most important thing was that they love and trust each other. Monica kissed her mother before going to bed and ran to her room. She could not sleep until morning, imagining herself in a gorgeous white dress among many white flowers. In her romantic dreams she saw David putting a ring on her finger, and they, looking into each other's eyes, repeated the words of their vows. After meeting the bride's parents, David told his best friend Russell about the upcoming wedding. But Russell did not share his friend's joy and enthusiasm. In fact, he was even saddened, because in this case he was losing a partner for a cheerful single life full of fun. At first, he simply discouraged David. He hinted that Monica was not serious about him, because such a rich girl was hardly seriously interested in such a simple guy. And then he said that as soon as anything would happen to David, Monica would immediately throw him out of her life as an unnecessary toy. David was very angry at his friend for this, because he did not believe Monica was capable of such a thing. Finally, Russell pulled one last trick and suggested a bet. If he lost, he was ready to beg her forgiveness on his knees. And if he won, David would buy him a dozen bottles of expensive whiskey. David felt that there was nothing good in this bet. But he was so angry with Russell that he agreed in order to prove him wrong. That same day the friends made up a story for David to tell Monica. The guy was very nervous because he did not like to lie. But he was sure that Monica would not let him down, and when she found out the truth, they would just laugh together at Russell. The next day he and Monica met in a cafe. The girl sat across from him at a table and talked about their future honeymoon. David pulled himself together, and with a sad face he informed her that they should not hurry. The guy went on to say that he had recently received the results of his medical tests. They showed that he has an incurable fibrodysplasia, a severe and rare disease. Therefore, he does not want to unfairly condemn Monica to suffer with her disabled husband. David offered to end the relationship immediately so that Monica could find a healthy man and be happy. When David saw his beloved crying, he wanted to tell her that it was all nonsense and just a joke. But he remembered that they had agreed with Russell that he would not confess until a week later. David hugged Monica and walked her home. For 5 days they did not see each other and did not talk on the phone. Russell was rejoicing, anticipating his winnings. And David was going crazy, not understanding what was going on. On the 6th day Monica called and offered to meet in the same cafe where he told her about his illness. The next day he waited impatiently for her at a table. When she arrived, he immediately wanted to tell her how much he loved her and tell her all about the stupid bet. But Monica stopped him with a gesture. She informed him that she knew how to help him. From her story, David understood that her father knows a doctor in Germany at one of the best clinics in the country. If they could quickly gather the documents and fly out for the examination, David could be saved. His father would pay the expenses. David realized that he was in not just a stupid, but the most disgusting situation. He stopped Monica, and stammering at each word carefully spoke. He said that he was not sick and that he himself had always believed Monica, that it was his friend Russell who had persuaded him to test Monica's feelings before the wedding and to make up this whole story and see if she would leave him or not. Monica's face changed. She would not let David continue. Her indignation was boundless. It was as if she had seen him for the new time. She could not believe that he could be so stupid as to bet with a friend and pretend to be sick, especially to prove to someone that she loved him. Moreover, she has distracted and disturbed so many serious people because of this deception. The guy tried to calm down Monica, asked for forgiveness, but the girl was unstoppable. She took her purse and left the table. Almost at the exit, she turned around and asked what they were betting over. When she found out that it was 12 bottles of whiskey, she grinned bitterly and left. Monica cried all night, realizing that this was the end. Even if David begged for forgiveness, it would still not work out. It is impossible to forgive such a thing. David walked home, tears streaming down his face. He called Russell and told him that he had lost. But he had lost Monica and she would never forgive him. The man on the other end of the line, listening to him and smiling smugly. He had regained the friend he had almost lost. The next day a delivery service courier brought to David's apartment 12 bottles of whiskey. And a note from Monica wishing him luck.